Welcome back to the Tailosive Movie Reviews podcast. Joining with me today is the co-host of this most amazing podcast, Mr. WandaVision, Mike. How are you doing, Mike?
I didn't know that I owned WandaVision, but I'm doing well. How about you, Nick?
You are the reason why this podcast is convened, and I should say I am so in support of this because, wow, WandaVision really took a turn. And if you recall our last stream where we talked all about our thoughts and feelings on the first, I believe, 4 episodes of WandaVision.
Very painful stream. Sorry about that, by the way, with all the connection issues. So that's why we're doing it this format.
Yeah, not a live stream, unfortunately, but we'll work our way up to that at some point. We had our thoughts on the first 4 episodes, and I think we both agreed that we were kind of confused what was going on, and we wanted more details. We were intrigued enough to finish the show, but we weren't really a fan of what they were showing at the moment. At least I wasn't. I don't really remember exactly what your thoughts were, but we were confused.
I think like lukewarm, happy with it. I was like, yeah, this is very unique and different. It's not too Marvel-esque, where it's like, oh, it's just another Captain and Winter Soldier or Captain Winter Soldier, Falcon Winter Soldier. I guess it's not like that typical type of Marvel scene. It's more of this is unique and weird, and there's a mystery to it. Yeah,
definitely. So anyway, we finished the series here. We finished our 9th episode of the first season of WandaVision. It was pretty good. I'd say it definitely redeemed it in the 3rd act of the show there. I was still pretty confused up to the Halloween episode. I was kind of lukewarm, cold on it. I was like, yeah, not really happy, but especially that last episode was really great, and the plot twist. So, spoiler alert for all of the things WandaVision coming up here in the next hour or so. So if you have not seen WandaVision, highly recommend that you take a couple hours out of your week/day and watch it, because it is a good show, and it's definitely worth the watch, and any installment on the MCU is going to be good, you know that. So definitely spoiler alert there. Mike, what is your out of 8 review of the entire first season, and probably only season, of WandaVision?
Yeah, probably only season. It seems like they left a lot of strings kind of closed, at least for what might happen in the future with the characters. But in any case, I would say out of 8, I'd give this series I'd give it a 6. I actually enjoyed it a lot. I think they did a great job with the characters. They were long deserving of their own spotlight. We got first introduced to them in Ultron, and they were kind of scattered around with Civil War and the Avenger, I guess, Infinity War and Endgame. There's a lot of wars that go on, I just realized, that they're a part of. But yeah, I think this was well-deserved, or at least well-needed. And it gave us a lot more backstory, especially was it the 8th episode, the penultimate episode. So much backstory, at least on Wanda. Yes. Vision, there's not really too much. And Agnes. It was Agatha all along.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you, Nick? What did you think?
Well, I think it kind of varied episode to episode, but if I'm looking at it completely on a whole season level, I think I'd agree with you, probably 5 or 6 out of 8, somewhere around there. It was definitely it was worth my time. I don't feel like I was cheated out of the time that I spent watching it, which is kind of one of the bigger issues that I come across, because I don't really consume too much media as far as taking the time to watch stuff. So whenever a movie or show feels like it wasted my time, I feel like I could have watched something I actually enjoyed instead of wasting my time here. So I definitely liked it enough to say it was a good use of time, and I would probably do it again if I had the chance. It's a good show. Lots of twists and turns, and what I really liked about it, I think from a macro perspective, just looking at the entire season as a whole, how it took. So there's a term in cinematography called forced perspective. It's where the viewer is forced to look at something from a certain angle because the director has control over the camera. And I feel like this entire show was really a perfect example of forced perspective, because at the very beginning, the first 3 episodes, we had no idea what the heck was happening in the actual MCU. We were in WandaVision TV show. And then through the second act of the season, we were looking at it from the eyes of the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. And that was kind of a forced perspective there. But we weren't inside the Hex, and we didn't a lot of movies kind of give you that God perspective, and you get to see like what the bad guys' motives are, what the good guys' motives are, and kind of what you get to kind of see everything. This movie really didn't do. I'm sorry, movie, practically a movie. Most
That's how they described it, I believe.
Most Marvel. Yeah, most Marvel movie. I even noticed on that behind the scenes, a lot of the actors were really mixing up the word movie and show. They were even calling it a movie. But yeah, most Marvel movies are actually parts of a large TV show, and most Marvel TV shows are actually just one movie. So Marvel really blending the lines there. But yeah, yeah, and then in the third act, when we got to see Agatha Agnes and get to see a little bit more, that's kind of when we got the full perspective and got to see both sides there. It was pretty good. So anyway, yeah, 5 or 6 out of 8.
Yeah, I did like. You mentioned the back or behind the scenes, which is also on Disney Plus, I believe, right now that anyone can watch.
Yeah.
They showed that
About an hour. It was really good.
Yeah, I know that you probably mentioned this when we did the stream, but it didn't really hit me. But they had a live studio audience for a lot of those early episodes, at least
Yeah.
up from episodes 1 to maybe 5 or 6.
3.
I think
3.
3. You think? Okay.
Okay, yeah, maybe
they had some authentic
Yeah.
laughing, at least with the episode
The
5,
90s,
which is
yeah.
kind of like Full House, which also very ironic because Elizabeth Olsen's sisters were on Full House, so it's kind of
Yeah.
like she got to watch it as a baby / kid, and now she gets to live it, or at least kind of live it in a sort of way. But yeah, and then with like, I guess Malcolm in the Middle was kind of where it departed a bit, with episode 6, where it was kind of more of that. I don't know if you remember. It's like the "You're not the boss of me now." You're not that show. Yeah, It was kind of like that type of theme, at least for that episode. With I think the early knots is where they're at that point.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed at least that they put so much, I guess, love and effort into the fact that it's like, hey, let's make this actually like a show, and actually
They made it authentic.
Yeah, make it authentic and kind of utilize what at least the actors study when they go into acting school, which I thought was just fantastic. But anyways, yeah, I guess, I don't know, are there any favorite moments of yours, Nick, that kind of speak out to you in the between episode 5 and 9 that
Yeah.
you found a lot more interesting?
Why don't we handle it like this? We'll do 5 through 8, and then we'll handle 9 separately, because I think a lot of things happened in 9. And if I were to try to combine both of those, I'd only be talking about things from 9. Because episode 9 is kind of where it all wraps up.
It's the climax.
I think 5 through 8, I really liked the fact that they did have some mid and end credit scenes that were like important. And the first 2 episodes, I watched the entire credits, waiting for an end credit, and I didn't get any. So I was like, all right, I guess they're not going to do them in these shows. And then I saw somewhere on Twitter, someone's like, oh, there's an end credit scene, and she goes in the cellar, and what's that character's name? Rambo, Captain? No,
Monica Rambeau, who I think is
Monica
also
Rambeau?
she's playing basically Proton from the comics. Is
okay.
It was pretty funny is that my wife and I were just watching the credits, just enjoying the visuals, and then all of a sudden the scene pops up at the end of episode 7, and we're like, whoa, cool, there's an end credits, but then it made us think, did we miss something from episode 6 or 5? And we looked and there's nothing there, so we're like, okay, so we just got lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Monica was trying to find Wanda and found Agatha's cellar, but then Pietro, or at least how they call him at the end, Fietro, because he's fake Pietro.
Pietro.
Basically abducts
He's
her.
also Boner.
Ralph Boner. I guess that kind of leads me into the question.
Gosh.
Do you think that Ralph Boner isn't actually Ralph Boner? Because I think we got a shot of, like, he's basically under witness protection or something like that, or at least, like, the police gave him a fake name, or maybe it is a fake name. I forget. I don't know whether this was a theory that I saw or it was addressed in the show.
I hadn't heard that, but it would make sense because Ralph Boner is... Let's just say if my last name was Boner, I would be going to the government and changing that ASAP, because that's not a fun name to have to say. I really did enjoy everything with Jimmy Woo. I think Randall Park did a really good job revising the role of Jimmy Woo. Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was probably my favorite character out of Ant-Man and the Wasp, just because he was like out of left field as far as where most Marvel characters are coming from. Most of the time it's fairly serious but comical situations, and this was like a comical character in a serious situation, which kind of spun that around. And I really appreciated just about all the scenes with Jimmy Woo. His lines are totally funny, and being able to do the physical comedy and want to get really deep and intimate and talk about, do you want to have kids? I want to have kids, and it not be with the context. Anyway, I identify with him a lot, just like I.
You also did a lot
Rex
more
from
magic
Toy
as
Story.
well. I was very surprised that they kind of revisited the magic. Like the first scene that you see, he's kind of flipping out his card, which you're like, haha, he did the Ant-Man thing.
Yeah.
But then like at the end, he does like the whole picking the lock or whatever, trying to do that whole magic trick. And then of course the comedy, like you said, there's just that wonderful presence that he brings where he's like, oh, director Hayward or whatever. I forget his name. The sword director.
The director dude. Yeah.
He's just like, oh, my guys will get here soon or whatever. Or I can call my guys. And the guy's like, nah. Yeah. or whatever. And then puts Jimmy Woo in prison or whatever. And Jimmy breaks out of his shackles and then stole his phone or whatever. And he's like, hey, can you guys get here in a few minutes?
Yeah, Jimmy Woo has a lot of power to just be able to call the FBI, hit a squad of FBI people in just a few minutes with no notice and no context on another government agency. Yeah, what did you think of what did you think of Agnes Catherine Haynes' character?
Catherine Hahn.
Hahn.
I think it was interesting. I liked. I mean, of course, there's all the silly theories that we actually addressed as well with her character, or at least like things surrounding her being some Mephisto or whatever. Even all the YouTubers were like, oh, it's Mephisto or whatever. And well, guess what? It wasn't Mephisto. It was another character actually from kind of the same magic realm as Wanda, being Agatha Harkness. But I think Catherine Hahn definitely brought a very wonderful, I guess kind of like Jimmy, a very nice presence to, or not Jimmy, I guess Randall Park. But yeah,
Randall Park.
A very nice, not an ethos, but I don't know. She gave kind of that silly, she basically played the character really well with being the nosy neighbor. But then when she kind of gets revealed to be this sorcerer or sorceress or witch or whatever, we get to see this very crazy, obsessive character who just wants to be all powerful. And I don't know. I think her addition was really good in this case. It got a little bit sticky, I guess, at episode 9 with having both her and the other Vision. It's like, oh, we got multiple villains, I guess. Okay. But no, I think she did perfectly fine. And yeah, what about you, Nick?
Yeah, so I really love the idea that they brought back Vision. That was probably one of my favorite points because it's a little fan servicey to say no one was ever really dead and have that they all the heroes that die always end up coming back because they're too valuable of a character to kill off. But I really love Paul Bettany and the way he plays Vision. Even back to Age of Ultron, I love the Vision. And I think it was kind of sad to see him die in Infinity War, but it was a very satisfying self-sacrifice moment that was like, wow, this is good. I would love to see more of him in the MCU, which is why I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what they're doing with WandaVision when I first heard about the show, but I was like, it has Vision in it. I'm gonna like it a little bit because Vision's a pretty fun character. So yeah, definitely was excited to see them bring Vision back, not just in the Hex, but in real life, and that the real MCU life, not real life. Kind of breaking too many fourth walls here. We have
Vision's
a fourth
real?
wall inside of a fourth wall. Wait, I know. Is he? I don't know. Better look out. He might be shifting through my walls. Yeah. So I was excited they brought back the White Vision, and I was kind of curious how they were gonna kind of tie that all back up. Well, I don't know. What else do you call him?
The Vision. He's just the Vision now because there is a part of.
Yeah, he is now, but we haven't gotten to episode 9 yet.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right.
Sorry. Yeah.
We were totally tiptoeing on that. So, might as well just jump into it, I guess, if we keep on going back
let's
to it.
Let's jump into 9. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right. We got the highlights from those two. So episode 9 was a great one. Definitely the crescendo of the entire show.
Music's great.
Yeah, while while we're talking about Vision, let's just go ahead and talk about that encounter that Hex Vision has with Real Vision, and I really love that conversation.
The ship of Theseus.
The ship of Theseus, and who is the true ship of Theseus, and I'm getting chills right now just thinking of it. The ship of Theseus is the Rot, and it's like, ooh, that is good. Like that is an opinion I've never heard, and I need to think about that some more. But it's like, ooh, that's good. The rotten boards that were replaced are the ship of Theseus, and so that would mean that the Real Vision is the Vision, and the Hex Vision. I'm still a little confused how the Hex Vision got all of his powers in the Hex, but
it's all
I
Wanda's
think that's a
Hex.
bigger
I
discussion
mean,
than we
she
can
gave
have.
power
Yeah,
to her
exactly.
kids that don't exist, being Wiccan and Speed,
Yeah.
which I hope reprise, or at least I don't know if the kids will reprise the role, but I hope that Marvel brings them back at some point. At least that's what they kind of teased at the end credit scene of this episode, is that Wanda's very obsessed with getting her children back, even though that they didn't exist.
Very.
I believe in the comics, the kids do come back, but they come back from different parents, and they end up finding their mom, which I think is really cool, and which I think would be not a bad way to go either. I mean, kind of like with this, like they didn't go the route that a bunch of comic nerds, or not really okay, whatever, a lot of people who knew the comics.
Hey, excuse me, Mike.
I didn't read the comics.
Excuse me.
I am definitely
Me neither.
in that. Yeah. But definitely a lot of people thought the show was going to go one way. Didn't go that way with Mephistos or whatever. Instead went with Agatha Harkness, but still include the kids. And the kids weren't absorbed or whatever, I think, in the comics, but they were dematerialized or whatever. They were basically like the Vision, or the Hex Vision, kind of wisped away into the wind. Not like a snap, thankfully. That would have been sad. It was kind of like that at one point, though, right? Where was it Wanda's trying to let the town escape, which I don't think anyone actually escapes because the borders are so far away and they have to run for so long.
Right?
And then doing that, she's taking down the Hex, or basically breaking down the Hex, and Vision and the kids start kind of doing the whole Infinity War thing of not melting but wisping away as dust.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a fun kind of theatrical moment. Definitely was the best part of that episode. What did you think about the WandaVision versus Agnes, like, witch scene in the sky? Like, it's not an MCU product without like a big CGI sky battle, so thankfully we got one of those.
Yeah, and at least this time, well, I don't know, I guess Thanos never really flew, but I guess Ultron kind of flew. But at least we had two mystical power beings fighting, which I don't think we really saw that before necessarily. I don't think Doctor Strange
Vision
really had Vision. Well, I mean, are they mystical? I guess Ultron and Vision are more technological.
In
which we got that with
right.
Vision versus Vision.
Right.
But we got some, I guess, witch fighting, though. I guess it was more just Wanda giving up her powers somehow. Again, I don't really know how it works, because like Agatha is getting this energy from Wanda inside the Hex, inside the surrounded runes that Wanda made. It's kind of just like, well, if Agnes can't use her powers in the surrounded rune perimeter, like, then how is she absorbing the magic or whatever? But I don't know. But anyway, this is interesting, especially the whole rune idea. Like, I like how they kind of played into that, where it's like, oh yeah, this is a new concept that Wanda could use, but she doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
And then now she's using it so quickly, though it's kind of just explaining how powerful she is, in which we see that at the end of like the whole entire show. It's like, oh yeah, she could just do whatever, but she's still trying to learn and still hasn't read the Darkhold or whatever. So, but yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I think definitely my favorite part of this second half of the season was the amount of Vision quotes that we got. And some of them were really deep and really nice. One that I really enjoyed, I think, was in episode 8, where, what was it? Vision and Wanda are talking in this flashback, and Wanda is distraught over losing her brother. And Vision comes in and talks with her or whatever and is trying to explain, well, I don't really know love. I've never loved. But then he kind of gets into it and he's like, well, but what is grief if not love persevering? Which, man, beautiful quotes. I think the internet went crazy over that as well. But I just thought, wow, like, they didn't have to do that. They could have just been having Vision laughing at Malcolm in the Middle on the TV or something else. But instead, it's like, no.
Yeah. This
is a beautiful moment between the two characters, which makes you just want more Vision because he kind of just up and leaves in the middle of episode 9. Or at least the new real Vision. He kind of just goes away. It's like, what happened to him? But definitely makes me excited. This whole series is knowing what happens with the new Vision, where he plays a role. Is he going to be not seen until the next Avengers, or is he going to pop in for Captain Marvel or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what his character design looks like, and yeah, I think out of all of the threads that were tied up with WandaVision at the end of episode 9, like halfway through episode 9, I was like, wow, they're really starting to tie up a lot of threads here. Like, I didn't know they weren't doing a season 2, and so I was like, what's the plot twist at the end here? Like, how are they gonna hook me for the second season? And like all the way up to like the very end, and then even through the end credits, I was like, how are they hooking me for the next season? Like, I feel so satisfied right now. All my little questions are answered. Like, there's a few things that, can go off into another show or be answered in some other Marvel franchise. But for the most part, all of my little questions were answered. And that's probably the biggest unanswered question at the moment is what's up with Real Vision? Where did he go? What's he going to do next? Who is he going to obey? Because, it seems like he is not underneath the bad military guys' control anymore. So...
And he's not really subject to the Avengers either. If you remember from between Ultron and Infinity War, he was kind of loyal to Stark and S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Sokovia Accords. But now he might be just a freelance agent at this point, being able to make his own choices. And he's more human for that. He's not just android. He's a lot more synthezoid in this regard of being able to make his own choices and have his own feelings. Which I think is a nice freeing concept, at least for the Vision. He's got more to work with now.
Agreed.
But you did mention with the whole strings kind of being tied up with everything. This was at least planned before the whole pandemic happened. This series was supposed to come to a close around this time right now. And then shortly after, I believe maybe in March or May or something like that, Doctor Strange was supposed to come out. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which also stars Elizabeth Olsen as the Scarlet Witch or Wanda Maximoff. And so that's what I believe the second season was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be just kind of leaving us on a cliffhanger for a year. Or it wasn't, there's a season 2, which because I don't think they're planning a season 2. It'd be kind of hard. It'd kind of be more of like WandaVision, but more of like Wanda and the new Vision trying to get along and trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
A little bit less sitcom-y and a little bit more figuring each other out and still having feelings. But of course, this is a new Vision, so he hasn't really lived that necessarily. Again, ties back to the whole Ship of Theseus thing. Is it Vision or is it not Vision? Yes and no. But yeah, I was supposed to tie into Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness along with Captain Marvel 2. Because they also have that. It wouldn't be Marvel without 2 end credit scenes, of course. They've got the
of course.
scroll reveal of one of the agents who's just like, "Hey, time to go visit Nick Fury in the sky."
Yeah, in the sky up there.
Yeah, just like that's a really vague term.
They went inside of a movie theater, and I'm like, oh, this is getting too meta. Like I didn't know what was happening, and so as it was. They went into a movie theater. I'm like, oh boy, like, are they going to go so meta and like show me on my phone watching them inside the movie theater or something on the Disney Plus app? Put the camera on or something. I don't know. I was like, they could go really meta here, but it was just a scroll. So I was like, phew, all right, we're gonna go to space.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good question. So Monica Rambeau, obviously she's becoming one of these superheroes that I'm not aware of. Who was she you knew? Photon.
Yeah.
Are her
Basically-
powers derivative of Wanda? Because she seems to have gotten them activated by going through the hex.
I mean, you could
So,
technically
like-
say they're derivative of the Mind Stone in a way, because the Mind Stone gave Wanda powers, and Wanda
okay.
gave Monica powers. Because that's one of the plot holes as well. Is the hex moves in and out, like it was moved forward and backward a lot, or not a lot, but enough to where it wasn't just Monica who experienced her DNA getting rewritten twice or once.
Well, Monica was the one who went out in and out. I think she did 4 times throughout the show.
She
She
got dragged in.
The first one sucked in.
Yeah, and then
and
got
then she
blown
got spit out.
and then ran in, basically pile drive her way in.
Yeah.
To try to get the car in there for some reason.
Well, no, and then she was trying to do the she was riding the
the big
space
Humvee.
tank thing. Yeah. Anyway, huh?
Yeah, but then she
I
ended
guess
up
she didn't
just
actually
walking.
make it all the way through then, but yeah. Oh, anyway, all right, yeah. So she went through it a couple times, which is more than most.
Yeah. So it
yeah.
just makes me think,
Overall,
okay,
really good show. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
Great.
I was just going back to.
Pumped.
It's like, well,
Yeah, go ahead.
does anyone else have these powers, or is it just Monica? Is she the only one that's kind of special or destined to it?
Yeah.
And also, it's like, well, if Wanda can somehow give powers to someone through a hex, or hex field, which I don't know if you noticed, the hex field looks a lot like an old TV wall or whatever, or screen. It's kind of got that digital look or whatever. It's kind of red and blue and a little bit pixely or whatever. I saw that and I thought that was a fantastic idea. Instead of just make it all magic wavy stuff, it's like, oh, you're clawing your way through a TV, kind of like The Ring, I think is what I'm thinking of, with the girl with the very long hair. It's a horror movie.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, very scary. Lots of nightmares of a girl crawling out of your TV with long hair and chasing you around your house. Anyways,
it's a good way to make your kids not want to watch TV.
yeah, but it just made it was kind of a plot hole, at least in regards for me, of just like, okay, so Monica had her DNA rewritten 2 or 3 times, where people only got their DNA rewritten like once, I guess, assuming that it's mainly just the people who I think the sword agents, because I think they were the ones who kind of got swept through into the clown circus.
Yeah. True.
Where the people who were originally there maybe did or didn't. Maybe the hex kind of just formed around. I forget if they kind of showed how the hex formed initially. But kind of going back to it, it'll be interesting to see what they do with Monica Rambeau being the superhero Photon or something like that. It'll be interesting to see what role she plays in Captain Marvel 2 and the rest of the Marvel films. It's almost like she's kind of taking over for Captain Marvel whenever Brie Larson is done. Or maybe I don't know if they're teeing up for that, or I'm not too sure, because we know that we can't get another kind of Robert Downey Jr. situation where we have someone on for years and years at a time.
Decades. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, kind of going back to it. Good show.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've gotten all my high level thoughts out. Do you want to move into our next segment?
Sure. Let's go into our next segment.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts outside of the inside of the show?
Outside of the inside of the show, it's kind of like the extra details.
Yeah, extra details.
So we kind of touched on it at the very beginning with the whole having a live audience. I thought that was neat. Being able to kind of capitalize on natural laughter to a scene, and then I guess this is kind of playing.
Well,
on...
and most of these were taken. Most of those shots were taken as more of a play. When they mentioned multi-camera, that means that there's multiple different perspectives, and it's all just happening organically. So a lot of times, what they'll do in a movie is when you're having a dialogue scene and you see an actor talking to another actor, and you're cutting between like over-the-shoulder shots or like dynamic. When they're editing it in the edit bay, they have like 5 different takes, and they take the best reaction of one take and put it next to this one, and they kind of splice it all together to make this very cinematic thing, but it's not as organic and realistic. And when they have a live studio audience with a multi-camera angle, what they're doing is they do have multiple cameras that they can cut between, but it's pretty much just one take. I think they probably did do more than one take, I'd imagine, after they had it all set up and stuff. But it's edited in a way that it's pretty much one take. So when you see Wanda's reaction, like that's Elizabeth Olsen's reaction to what the Vision is doing at that time, and it's not really the fifth take later and then spliced with the third take and then the first take having it's more real, I guess. It's more theatrical, and that's what I did appreciate, how they tried to preserve, especially with the first 3 episodes, the theatrics of classic American television, and it was really impressive. And we can go into more details if you'd like.
Yeah, no, definitely. I thought was very, very creative of them. Is that they noticed, at least, or even before they started shooting, is that if they wanted a Vision that was kind of accurate to the black and white scale, because we usually, of course, all the movies that we've seen all these superheroes in, it's not black and white. We've got color, and it's usually high dynamic color. We have purples and greens and all these other colors that they're kind of adding in that just make it pop and look beautiful. But in the early episodes, we get like the 50s and 60s, or at least kind of the black and white era where you don't really see too much color. And that means we can't really see Vision's red head. And if you were to shift that into the black and white scale, it doesn't really look red. I think it looks more black, I think. And they want to make it look a little bit more red. And to do that, instead of giving Paul Bettany, who played the Vision, the red paint over his face that they usually give him, they gave him blue paint, in which then they kind of did a screen test to see how that looked. And it looked basically as if it was Vision with his regular red head or whatever, which I thought was very creative.
Yeah, in black and white.
Yeah, in black and white. So I didn't notice that, of course, when watching it, because you don't really think, oh, is that actually a red color? No, you kind of just assume, yeah, it's black and white. He's probably got a red head or whatever. Yeah. And then when they do the whole colorizing scene, I think at the episode of 2, I think, you kind of see the red. You're like, oh, see, yeah, it was red. But no, that's, of course, movie magic. But, yeah, no, I thought that was creative with kind of having to work with what you got in terms of like, okay, we're filming in black and white, but we still have to make the character look like the character, and we don't want to make him look too different. And so they tried going more accurate by shifting his color palette. That was a lot just to say. Really cool that they made his head blue, but
Blue-headed Vision is my favorite. The other thing that really stood out to me, especially in the first episode, was the very limited use of modern CGI or modern special effects. They really worked hard to reproduce a lot of the original effects that people would have seen on 50s television, using fishing lines and strings and cutting the camera, making the actress freeze and then changing her coat and then putting action and yeah, exactly. So it's kind of, it to our modern views, it looks, corny and dumb, but like in the at the time it was, amazing, movie magic, and in the universe that WandaVision is operating in, it's perfect, and it just feels so genuine and real. I think I said this when we were reviewing the first few episodes. I am a huge fan of old TV shows. I love Lucy's show, Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith's show. I love these old TV shows, and they don't have a ton of special effects because at the time it was very crude and very expensive to make special effects. But if any one of those shows were to do really like special effects, it would be this version of special effects that had, all the recipe cards floating on little strings and just kind of swaying around in the breeze. And it's like, to me, I know those are just on strings, even though I'm watching it. And it's weird to watch when I'm so used to, the MCU, Thanos, and just a whole CGI warfare. It's just like, you lose it, and it's just so practical and real, and it feels so tangible. And I really do love their attention to detail. And I think you said it at the beginning here, the biggest standout piece of this whole the whole aspect of the first 5 episodes with the TV show is that the directors and the producers legitimately cared about making it feel real. And I think a lot of movies and a lot of TV shows want to come off as feeling real, but they don't do all of the behind the scenes work to make it feel real. I would imagine in a different world, they wouldn't have a live studio audience. They just have a laugh track. And in another world, they might have, left Vision's head red and fixed it in post and hued it blue, because you can totally do that. I could do that in Final Cut right now. Just turn a certain color, a different color in post, and then you get that same black and white effect of it being the correct color in black and white. But they didn't. They decided to do it in real life and then fix it and just oldize it later at the very end. So very impressive and very, very caring. Like this is something that I don't see very often in cinema, where the owner of a property, a franchise director, whatever, producer, they care about the audience experience of it as much as they care about the story that they're trying to tell. I think a lot of times people will kind of focus in on the MCU style story that they're trying to tell and maybe lose track of the believability of it or the feel of it. Because, when I'm watching Captain Marvel and she's fighting squirrels up in space, it's like, okay, it looks cool and it's telling the story, but like, I'm not emotionally connected to this because like I've never seen that happen in real life.
Yeah, there's no connection at all. Like you don't have any connection to really her character at the time when she's throwing scrolls into the space or whatever, or even the scrolls in general, because we just got introduced to them like 15 minutes before. It's like, oh yeah, there's these shape-shifting aliens and they're evil, and then you see them, you're like, okay, here are the bad guys. Oh, she's kicking butt. But yeah,
and we know all about the Dick Van Dyke Show and Bewitched and like all of these classic TV shows. Now, maybe most people haven't sat down and like watched an entire season of one of these old shows, but it's in our culture enough that like we know that nostalgic, real gritty feel of what one of these shows feels like, and they were able to reproduce that to a T. And if it wasn't for the fact I was watching Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany perform on screen, I would have been like, this is an episode of Leave It to Beaver or like another classic show. And it's kind of fun to be able to relive that kind of a memory. And you could totally tell, though, another thing, all of the actors and actresses who played in these kind of TV roles, they were eating it up. Like you could just tell, like especially with the behind the scenes, but even like in the actual show, you could tell that Elizabeth Olsen was in her element when she was playing to the audience and making dinner or whatever and making breakfast with the snap of her finger. And it's like you can tell that the actress herself really enjoys doing this. Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of love of craft that you can't replicate with 1,000 CGI animators. It's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, especially seeing Deborah Jo Rupp, who played Mrs. Hart especially the first episode, but the many other ones as well. She's well known, at least for, I think she was in Bewitched, but she definitely has that experience, and so it's nice kind of seeing her reprise or at least utilize that experience for a Marvel film.
Yeah.
I think she even noted that her nephew kind of pushed her to take the role because she was a little bit unsure, and her nephew's like, do it or else I'm never talking to you again, or ever, like you're missing out on the deal of a lifetime. And she's like, okay, I guess I have to do it. And she did, and she's like, oh, this is fun. And, I mean, who else can say that they were a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but they were so loosely connected that like they don't have to almost have the burden of like, oh, I have to do like 3 more movies of this and have to like put in a lot more effort and time, which a lot of people or a lot of actors enjoy that. Kind of like the actress who plays Monica Rambeau. She seems very hyped with her role as Monica Rambeau. But actors like Deborah Jo Rupp or I don't know if there's any others that off the top of my head I guess is Catherine Hahn kind of a part of that? Maybe not. She's just a really good actor in general. But it shows that
I think Randall Park was also pretty excited.
Yeah. But it shows that at least the director, Matt Shackman, really put a lot of heart and cared for this entity, basically, that he was directing. And all 9 episodes that he was kind of molding around, telling the actors what to do and why to do it. What's your action, I guess, in this regard? Like, your action is not I'm stirring the pot, or I am cooking the eggs, or I am walking over the street sign. It's what is your goal? And so kind of like with Catherine Hahn's character, I'm sure he kind of pushed her in that regard of like, what is your goal? And she's like, well, I guess I'm kind of causing mischief. And it's like, no, like your goal is to get the powers of Wanda, and you have to do everything that you can to do it. That means that you're being malicious and that you're having to do all this other stuff. That is your action. And it shows in the writers as well with like Peter Cameron and Mackenzie Doer and a bunch of others. Just there's a lot of care in the lines for this show, and I really appreciate it. It's not the most flashy show necessarily. I mean, it gets pretty flashy near the end. It becomes the Marvel-esque film that we've kind of come to know and love for so many years. But it shows that they really cared about what they were making with this first Marvel TV show. I think it really stands as a really great precipice that Falcon and the Winter Soldier kind of has to... It's going to knock out of the park because it's Falcon and Winter Soldier. But I think it's definitely going to be hard creative writing-wise because it's kind of the same old story of two people versus the bad guy, and there's super soldier people, and it's a whole bunch of punching and running on buildings and trucks, where WandaVision doesn't really have that. It's more of tension building and emotion. It's a whole entire series about dealing with grief, which I think is fantastic. It's
and trauma, honestly.
Oh my goodness.
all of this show is just all about the trauma, and I am all about trauma. The one thing. No, that came out wrong. Sorry. I'm all about watching trauma unfold on a screen and watching the traumatic events of a fictional character's past be resolved.
In a way.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end, it's kind of not, but yeah.
Yeah, I did want to say, real quickly while we're on the actors and actresses, Tiona Paris, I believe, who plays Captain Rambeau, she in the what is it, like the director, like I don't know, behind the scenes, I don't know, what are we calling that?
We could call it behind the scenes.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
It's a whole separate thing. You can find it somewhere. It's not even with the show, which is weird.
Yeah, it's Avengers Assembled on Disney Plus. It's like that's such a random name. Like whatever. I have a whole issue with how Disney has organized their Disney Plus app. I think the content's great and the visuals are nice, but like their organization needs to have some help. But anyway, Tiona was talking about how she got the role. And just watching her recount the story of how she got the role of Captain Rambeau was just so exciting. Like you could see she was so passionate about it, and it was like, man, I want to be this passionate about something. Like that's so exciting that we have like actors and actresses who like legitimately love the brand and love the characters and want to do whatever they can to make the show the best that it can be. And that's what's missing from a lot of big budget films. You know, I'm looking at you, episode 8 of Star Wars. You know, there just wasn't that like everyone who was there wanted to be there and wanted to make their characters really shine. And yeah, so definitely watch that and behind the scenes, not end credit scene. Like, why do I keep wanting to say that? It's not an end credit scene. It's a behind the scenes hour-long movie, basically.
I guess playing on this train as well. Evan Peters, who plays Pietro in this.
Oh, yes.
Did a great job. I think they did a fantastic job kind of bringing him in. It wasn't like retconning the old Pietro Maximoff, which I totally forget. Is it Aaron something? I forget what his name is.
I don't know.
But wasn't completely replacing him. It was like, hey, is this X-Men's kind of characters coming into the Marvel fold? And it turns out most likely not, probably not in terms of introducing them, but it's kind of bringing in that thought of different realms / timelines, or not really timelines. What am I thinking? Maybe it was realms, kind of meshing together and being able to kind of pluck out characters. Like, oh yeah, you remember Mystique from the X-Men films? She's here now in the Marvel world, and they get to interact with Jennifer Lawrence, which I don't think Jennifer Lawrence is acting as Mystique anymore. But it was nice, I guess, going back to Evan Peters, kind of seeing the role he plays, because it's still kind of that same Pietro, or I guess they call him Peter, I think, in the Days of Future Past and what was it, X-Men Apocalypse. was nice seeing that version.
I actually haven't seen any of those movies.
Really? Okay. You should definitely watch him just for Evan Peters. He does a great job as Pietro in them. They don't really talk about Wanda necessarily, but Pietro kind of gets the spotlight in this regard, which I think is fantastic because you kind of get the wonderfulness of Wanda Maximoff in the Marvel series, and then you get the wonderfulness of Pietro Maximoff in the Fox series.
Huh. Okay.
But he does a great job in that. I think
Fox is the Flash, right? That's their fast guy, not Quicksilver, right?
No. So Fox bought Marvel characters. This was back in when Marvel was kind of going under, and so they had to sell off some of their characters. So that's how Spider-Man went to Sony, okay. And then the Fantastic Four.
I thought they had Flash, though, right?
No, the Flash is DC.
DC, oh my god. Keep all of these straight, guys. It's so confusing.
No. So here's a great thing.
Why Marvel does every single cinematic universe have to have the same slate of characters, just different names? It's so confusing. Oh my gosh.
I mean, just think Warner Brothers is mainly the owner of all of the DC comic stuff. And then anything else outside of that's usually Marvel. So like Sony with Spider-Man or Fox with X-Men. Now because Marvel bought them, it's now okay, Marvel can kind of tap in. Like they announced Fantastic Four, so it means that we're getting Fantastic Four in with potentially Falcon and Winter Soldier.
MCU?
Yeah, in the MCU. So we're gonna get Mr. Fantastic, The Thing, the Human Torch, and it's not Miss Appear. It's the Invisible Woman. I'm sorry, everyone. Please let me know in the comments. But yeah, so those characters are going to be coming to the MCU, and then some of the Fox characters, kind of like Evan Peters, might be reprising their role, or they'll just recast him as someone else. But having like, oh goodness, not Mephisto. I'm drawing a blank. All the X-Men people like Wolverine and Professor X are coming to the Marvel Universe. So this was kind of at least a nice tease with having Evan Peters kind of reprise his role, but kind of introduce his role as Quicksilver. So it'll be interesting to see if they either bring him on actually as Quicksilver or they just bring someone else in. But I guess going back to it, I think he did I think he knocked it out of the park, even though that it seemed like a major role with the Halloween episode. Like, now we're going to get this kind of Uncle Jesse type of character, which is kind of like I guess it was mainly Malcolm in the Middle theme, but it was kind of an Uncle Jesse figurine for the family. We're going to have this for the rest of the series? No, he's gone within the episode, which that's okay. He kind of sticks around and you kind of get to enjoy his acting skills, which I thought were good. Yeah, sorry, that was a long tangent.
No, that's all right. I'm really love talking about the actors behind these characters. Back to Catherine Hahn. How were you saying that? I think. I know it was Han. Okay, I just remembered I'd mispronounced it earlier, and I couldn't remember which way was right. So Catherine Hahn. Have you seen Parks and Recreation?
I have not. I am not a Parks and Rec viewer.
No worries. No worries, but I am most definitely deep into the Parks and Rec fandom. And for like the entire show of WandaVision, I was like, that Agnes character, she looks really familiar. Where else has that actress played? And I didn't look it up because I don't normally look these things up. I don't care enough to. And so I was like, she plays on something that I've seen before. And then I was rewatching Parks and Recreation, and for some random reason, the episode that was like up next was for all you Parks and Rec fans, the one where the character that Catherine Hahn plays in the Parks and Rec world, which is the campaign advisor, campaign manager for a politician in the Parks and Rec universe. Anyway, I was just watching that, and I was like, oh, she's the bad lady from the WandaVision. It was just kind of all the clicking happening. And I really loved Catherine Hahn's performance in Parks and Rec. And she's just very fun and vivacious, but very serious and gravitasness. And it's kind of a fun mixture that you don't see very often in an actor and actress. And it was very, very exciting. It all made sense. She's Agnes. It was Agatha all along. Okay, cool. Also, that intro is probably the best ever. Like they just threw that intro in there.
The outro
the characters figured out
for Agatha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She killed the dog.
I killed Sparky
No,
too.
she killed the dog.
It's like, wow, she is evil.
You know that's the villain when they're killing off animals. Oh my goodness.
Which I found actually quite interesting, or not interesting, but suspicious when I think in episode 3 or 4 when it happens. She brings Sparky
4.
out. Yeah, it's 4. She brings Sparky out, and she's like, "Oh, I found him." And I'm like, "Sure you did."
Yeah, sure you did.
Sure you.
Oh,
did.
sorry.
Wink. Yeah. Fantastic, fantastic meme-worthy gif or whatever. You kind of touched on it. I wanted to kind of expand on it. The fact that we get all these fantastic actors from different shows that we've recognized, like you said that you just saw Catherine Hahn in Parks and Rec or whatever you were watching or something like that, and she was there. What was it? My wife and I got done with WandaVision, and my wife has been watching New Girl on Netflix. And on New Girl, and I think I forget what episode, maybe it's like 16 or 17 or 5 or 6, whatever episode that she was watching. They're at like a Verizon store type of place, and all of a sudden Randall Park walks in and is buying a phone or something like that.
Does he snap dollar bills?
I would like to buy a new phone. It was just funny because it's like, oh wow, look, Randall Park again, and he's a fantastic actor in both The Office.
Yeah.
And,
He was in The Office, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was
Jim.
also in Fresh Off the Boat, and I really loved him in Fresh Off the Boat. Yeah, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah, so it's nice with all these Marvel shows kind of bringing in all these fantastic actors, people from kind of very old sitcom shows, like just forgot her name, Deborah Jo Rupp, with such a great gravitas to her performance, to people like Randall Park, who's just witty and hilarious and fun, and then people like Catherine Hahn, who's just very multifaceted in how they act and can deliver a fantastic performance. And you just don't know, how would they integrate this actor? Like, how would they integrate I don't know, I can't even think of an Tom. What if they tried putting Tom Cruise into a Marvel movie? Like, who would he play? Or kind of like what we see with Thor Ragnarok. We see Matt Damon playing a fake Loki in what's it called, the reenactment of what happened in Thor 2, which is funny because it's getting Matt Damon into the Marvel universe without having to be like, it's Matt Damon.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because sometimes these characters, or the actors and actresses, have like been on other things together, and like, I don't know. I think Elizabeth Olsen was on some other show with like maybe Dick Van Dyke or maybe someone on Bewitched or something. I was watching a YouTube video and they made a passing reference how Elizabeth Olsen was connected to the star of one of those old TV shows that like was in the box that the Max Moff's dad, Mr. Max Moff, had in his flashback. I don't know what his name is.
I don't remember either.
But anyway, like it's getting to the point though where the MCU is so big and so massive and encompasses so many actors and actresses that it's getting hard to avoid these conflicts. Like, oh, that's the lady from that movie. That's the bad guy from that movie. Oh, and they're in the same universe over here too. And it's getting a little confusing. It's only going to get bigger, and I don't mind it personally, but it's just kind of funny to be like, yeah, in universe this makes sense, but out of universe it doesn't make sense.
You mentioned The Flash earlier, and that's exactly what they do in that TV show. My wife and I watched a lot of The Flash on the CW, and just in fact, they've got a character on there whose name is Cisco, who's very much kind of like a comic book nerd or whatever.
Yeah.
And he talks about Iron Man and a whole bunch of these other superheroes, which is funny because that's the Marvel universe that they're talking about, but they're in the DC universe. And so it's like, what is going on? He's name dropping all these funny comic book heroes, but they're in a comic book show.
Confusing.
Yeah, it's like, wait, so do you know about Superman? No, Superman's that one dude from Metropolis, right? It's like, no, but you know comics, it's Superman. Or do you know Batman? Oh, that one brooding guy who disappeared.
So maybe there is a multiverse, and maybe there's a universe out there where the DC comics are real life, and they have Marvel comics as their superheroes and their fiction. And then maybe there's a universe out there where Marvel is real life and DC is their comic books and their fiction for their kids. And we're in the strange universe where both are fiction.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. But no, I guess kind of wrapping it up, I'd say this is a fantastic show. I kind of gave it like the definitely. 5 or 6 out of 8, but kind of thinking about it, the writing was superb. It wasn't a heavy hitter like Infinity War or Civil War or a lot of wars.
It had the lightness. It had the lightness of Spider-Man: Far From Home, which is what I really did appreciate about like after Endgame. Like I think Spider-Man: Far From Home came out like a couple months after Endgame.
Kind of lightness. I mean, the character that Tom Holland is playing is like in the biggest grief ever. He's lost his father figure. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
I mean,
it's a little bit less stakes,
it's not whole scale. It's not Thanos and the world-ending, army of CGI, whatever the dog things with 6 legs and teeth, whatever those were. It isn't like the huge theatrical Avengers Assemble MCU. It's like the wholesome, smaller scale MCU, and that's what I've always liked. That's why I liked Spider-Man so much, the Tom Holland iteration of Spider-Man, because all of these MCU franchise movies seem to always get in such a big scale that it became hard to believe. Mm-hmm. And at a small extent, WandaVision does do this. They take over an entire town, right? That's a little difficult for me to swallow. It doesn't happen every day, but at least with the Spider-Man franchise, and maybe when we review Spider-Man, I'll get deeper into this. So I'll make it brief. But with Spider-Man, they keep the conflict small. It's one guy, Venom, and his gang of thugs, maybe 20 or 30 of them. It's not like literally Thanos, right?
An army
it's not this huge thing.
Chitauri soldiers or whatever.
Yeah, and props to WandaVision's directors and writers for not writing in a huge big CGI battle of 2 good guys versus bad guys going after everything. But at the same time, it still did have that scale that is a little difficult for me to swallow. So anyway, yeah, I thought it was really good too. But it's that wholesome, smaller scale type of Marvel, which I do appreciate a lot, even more than the big scale theatrical things.
Yeah. Though that does get into the question that I kept on asking every single episode with my wife. It's like, how does like no one call the Avengers at this point? Like,
right.
They can't. Excuse me. They can't made it realistic.
This is after Endgame, right? Like, are the Avengers around?
I mean, if you think about it, so let's see. Hawkeye is kind of living with his family. Was it Black Widow's dead? I guess we're spoiling Endgame right now. Iron Man's dead. Yet. Captain America's probably dead at this point. We have Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We have Ant-Man, I guess. He's an Avenger, I guess. Black Panther, though I guess it's kind of hard with Chadwick Boseman passing away. It's kind of hard to be like, oh yeah, see, Black Panther can help out. But I mean, I guess the point that I'm getting across to is like everyone was kind of expecting at the end because they already announced that Elizabeth Olsen was going to be in Doctor Strange 2. Where's Doctor Strange? Wouldn't he be involved in this? Like, there's a giant hex surrounding a town. Yeah. You would think that he'd be like,
that is.
Well, I guess I'm going up north because he's in Manhattan, right? He's not too far from Jersey. He can make the flight or drive or whatever. Like,
and he would be the right hero to deal with the problem, right? Like it would be Doctor Strange, the witchcraft, the wizardry, the whatever is going on with Wanda and Agnes. Yeah, you're totally right. Now that I think about it, that is a little bit of a missed opportunity. However, I'm not dissatisfied with what they ended up doing. It would have been nice to see Doctor Strange maybe in an alternate world, but I'm not dissatisfied with what we got because what we got was really good.
No, and I agree.
What was the whole show? I mean, each one of those episodes was about 35 minutes or so.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, like it looked like on Disney Plus it was 40 minutes or whatever, but of course, like 6 to 8 minutes was end credits. So you get like maybe a 30-minute show for a lot of it.
The whole show took about 5 hours of my life away, right? And it's I enjoyed it. Normally when something sucks 5.5 hours of my life away and I don't enjoy it, I'll be really mad. But and I watched the behind the scenes thing too, so that's six hours and some change. Of life that got sucked away. And if I don't enjoy it, I'm pretty upset that I missed that time, but I'm very happy that that's where I spent my time, because it was a good show. So highly recommend it. Yeah, even though I only gave it a 5.5 or 6, it's still a good show.
Yeah,
and not everything needs to be perfect 8 stars. This was an objectively good show that was a 5.5 or 6.
I did want to highlight this for the viewers, Nick. Even though this isn't a live stream, folks, feel free to comment in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. Feel free to ask us questions. We're more than happy to answer some of them if you want any of our takes on it. And as soon as me and Nick finally get Starlink, we'll be doing at least more of these kind of TV show reviews, kind of like what Drew and Dan did with Mandalorian. We'll do kind of more of that so we can interact more. But for now, sorry, but feel free to, again, ask us if you want us to review another Marvel property. I think it might be due for Nick to watch the X-Men films and kind of see how they tackle a lot of those Marvel superheroes that Marvel can't tackle because they didn't own them. But I guess those aren't TV shows. But I guess as this is a TV show review, put at least down in the bottom of the comments what TV show we should review next, and we'd be more than happy to check it out and give our thoughts as well. Otherwise,
I like it.
Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening to our opinions, and we'll catch you sometime in the future.
Have a good one. God bless.